Yes. Cornbread. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to Cast Iron Wednesday, a long running tradition that a lot of the YouTube cooking channels, or at least the smaller YouTube cooking channels, have been doing for the past several years here on Wednesdays. Because, well, really, it's more of an excuse for us to be able to do a cast iron video and play around with our cast iron cookware and just generally have fun. As well as producing content for YouTube, of course. And that's kind of why I'm here as well. Largely because, well, I have been very much enjoying cast iron now for the past 13 and a half years. And I've been doing these live videos every Wednesday now for 3.5 years. So go figure. And somehow I'm still here, and evidently so are a lot of other folks here. So thank you very much to everybody who's been kind enough to show up. I know I say this every week, but that's really because seeing you folks here on this channel, especially here on YouTube Live, is quite inspiring, and I really enjoy seeing the folks here who are kind enough to visit my channel regularly. For instance, Linda Mooney. Hello, all from Wyoming. Nice to see you here. And hello, Celine 77 star 99. Hello, William Hurt. Hello, Cynthia Wesley and Mercy B and Pip Gorn and Rich Qualls and watching from Southern California. And thank you to everybody, wherever you are from. Thank you very much for taking the time to show up tonight. And such as Farm Boy 762, who says, as he says, cornbread. You bet, yes, indeed, because tonight is cornbread night. Sometimes you might be able to say every night is cornbread night when it comes to cooking in cast iron, because, well, really, it's like cast iron and cornbread go together like cast iron and cornbread. I mean, those are the two things that just go together like this. And really, you can't get better cornbread than when you bake it in cast iron, and that's pretty much the end of it. So, especially since one thing as well is that uh, a week from this coming Saturday, we've got the annual, once again, National Cornbread Festival. Which of course is basically Lodge Cast Iron sponsoring a street festival in their hometown of South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Really is an excuse to have fun and to have everybody do a street festival, and why not? Because after all, I mean, festivals are always fun, and it's certainly worth it if you are in the area to spend at least a weekend indulging pretty much in cornbread and cast iron. And that's why, again, we are celebrating here. Cornbread, yeah. Festival of Corn, as he says. Cast iron with Honey J. Badger. I'll be there. Nice skillet. Yeah. The skillet here I obtained at the National Cornbread Festival, obviously, 7 years ago on their 20th festival. This year, if I understand right, it's going to be the 27th festival. So yeah, time sure flies, doesn't it? And likewise as well. Hello, Terry Sinchef. I picked up a $5 number 5 unmarked Wagner at an estate sale for 6 months. Nice deal for you there. That's for sure. And having said that, well, again, this is our excuse here to celebrate for the National Cornbread Festival and to make some cornbread. So I suppose I should stop talking and actually start getting down to it. Well, I'm not going to stop talking, unfortunately. That's kind of what I do on this channel. But nonetheless, we could certainly get down to making some cornbread. The actual cornbread pans that we're going to be using are preheating in the oven. Because, well, of course, I mean, that's the best way to make cornbread. If you want your cornbread not to stick, then the best thing to do is to preheat it in the oven. So let's get started here. And the first thing we're doing tonight is going to be some nice and basic Southern style cornbread, the kind that has only 6 ingredients. And as soon as I bring up the recipe, we can get started on that. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's the first thing I got to do. I mean, the cornbread pan's been heating in the oven, yes, but I am going to have to actually heat up some oil to go with it. So this is going to go over here for the time being, and that means I get to bring out a cornbread pan. And it's not just any cornbread pan, but this is the pan that made history. It's also extremely hot right now. So here it comes. And we've all seen it before as well. The Birmingham Stove and Range cornbread skillets. This is the skillet that, well, didn't exactly start it because cornbread pans had been around for, decades before. But when this pan was introduced by BSNR in 1967, it became a sensation. This pan is really legendary. Oh, and by the way, I'm using corn oil here because I've actually had a lot of good luck using corn oil with my when making cornbread. I know people like to use pretty much any kind of oil they want, whether it's bacon grease or lard or vegetable oil or the like. But I have had good luck with corn oil. When I made my cornbread in lard, it tended to blacken, whereas the this the corn oil that I'm using here instead actually gives it a nice browning on the bottom. So I've been quite happy to use that. But as you can see, I've got pretty much, I'm covering every inch of it with the just that with the oil. And this is going to go back into the oven while we prepare our ingredients. Holy cow, this is hot. Oh, well, yeah. The oven is preheated to 450 degrees. So, yeah, that is a hot piece of cast iron. But let's get started here. It sounds like a phone text just came in. Okay. All right, then. Let me see. Where was I? Oh, yes. Okay, that means we got to start out with what else but some cornmeal. And this is gonna be a nice basic recipe, so we're using straight cornmeal for this one. Okay, so there's 1 and 2 cups of cornmeal. Nothing hard about that. Let me cover it so that I don't accidentally spill it. All right, then from here, we mix in a teaspoon of baking powder. Interestingly enough, the other recipes for cornbread all say a full tablespoon of baking powder, but here it's only a teaspoon, which is also nice. And again, this means we have some nice and easy ingredients. Really, cornbread is the type of thing you can literally just whip up anytime. Of course, that's one reason why they have Jiffy Mix in the store, but I mean, as I said, we're only using 6 ingredients here, so it's hardly something that's going to break the bank. Thank goodness. And then to that, we do half a teaspoon of salt. So let's break out some kosher salt, shall we? Get this out there and quickly measure up half a teaspoon of kosher salt. Yeah, I can't see your comments yet while I'm busy putting this together, but once this goes into the oven, I'll have time to chat. All right, because there are things to say, of course, about the BSNR cornbread skillet. And to this, okay, that means now I get to whisk together the dry ingredients. And I know I put my whisk around here somewhere. Here it is. Whisking your dry ingredients is important. I say this every time, especially because it's important. So don't skip this step. Now from here, here's where we go in and add 1 egg, 1 large egg, which I actually prepared for this in advance. I actually took out my eggs in advance. Who remembers to do that? Okay, but here's hoping I can crack this properly without getting shell in, because lo and behold, yeah, there we go. The egg goes all over the place yet again. Fortunately, the shell did not get into the cornbread, so I'm not doing too badly. And then from there, 1 egg slightly beaten. And finally, after that, will be 1.5 cups of buttermilk. I think I may have miscalculated with preparing my buttermilk. All right, that's all right. We'll start by whisking this up. I probably shouldn't have even whisked it. I probably should have used, well, yeah, we'll manage it right now. Because yeah, at this point, all I have is my dry ingredients and a little bit of egg. So definitely it's time to start adding the buttermilk. And one thing I've learned, especially with this, is you have to do it a little bit at a time because it, it, well, it's got to be the science, namely that if you add all of it at a time, all of the milk at once, it seems like that's not enough, and you do end up needing to add more milk or buttermilk, as it may be. However, if you do add it a little bit at a time, it seems to mix in better. All right, I'm gonna wait on the whisk, and I'm gonna stick with the spatula instead. And then we will just keep on adding milk or buttermilk, I should say. Yeah, this is definitely gonna be a savory cornbread, I will say that much, and a little bit more. So far at this point, it looks like we've only used about half a cup, so I'm not doing too badly. It's only about 1/3 of what I'm supposed to use. So anyway, it looks like at least it's starting to mix in with of the uh, all of the cornmeal, which means now all we have to do is moisten it, so to speak, a little bit more. Looks like I've been adding this about a quarter cup at a time, so that's not bad because now it's beginning already to look like cornbread batter. So far, I've only used about 3/4 of a cup. Nice, nice start so far. At this point, it looks like you could probably make it into clay sculptures. And here's a little bit more. So now we are down to one. We've used 1 cup. Supposedly, we're supposed to use 1.5 cups, but hey, look at this. Suddenly starting to take on the consistency of cornbread batter. Still a little thick yet. So I will take the advice of the recipe, and I would hope so, considering I cobbled this recipe together myself several years ago. Still, this is not looking too badly. Maybe a little bit more, and that might even be enough, even though we're not even 1.25 cups of buttermilk. But hey, I'd say this is looking pretty good. Which is why, as I said, you have to be sure to mix your milk in or buttermilk a little bit at a time. And let's see what we say in the comments there. Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry for your loss, Corey. My condolences. 14 left for showtime. Let me move this out of the way because now time to break out the cast iron once again. That hot, very hot cast iron. And I'd be better be careful not to spill this oil on me. That would not be good. Hot pan, hot oil, food won't stick. Okay, that means now at least on top of all this, we get to throw in the extra oil. All right, so, oh, hot, hot, hot. Holy cow, that's hot. All right. Now, that also helps to, well, we've just added a little bit more liquid to the batter, too. So, having done that, actually, I should get my other spoon, my actual serving spoon. Where the heck did I put it? It's over here in the dish rack because I forgot to put it away. Anyway, all right, and I can't take too long because I don't want this batter to settle. So let's get started here. There we go. One. Oh, great. I just got some into the other pan. Oh, well. Two. Three. Don't want to. There we go. Don't want too much. Four. Five. One thing I've also learned is I don't want to overfill it. Six. Seven. And finally, here comes eight. And as they say, it's not cornbread if it doesn't sizzle, and this is definitely sizzling. In fact, let's add a little bit here, a little bit there, even off the top, as we can. And with that, our first batch of cornbread goes into the oven. Oops, gotta be careful. There's another pan in there. In fact, there are 3 other pans in there. How about that? All right. Now that we've done that much, let's get this out of the way. I have already dirtied up this pan, but there we go. Okay, now, at least according to the recipe, we should only need to keep this in the oven for about 20 minutes, if I'm seeing that right. Yeah, for about 20 minutes. So it's saying 8:17 right now, so that means 8:37, maybe even before, we will have cornbread. Oh dear, it sounds like something happened to Corey, and I'm very sorry about that. Corey, Cynthia Wesley, hello, Corey. Okay, okay, I see. All right. It's Corey Clark. I lost my mom on Saturday. Oh, very much my condolences, Corey. I'm very sorry for your loss. All right. Okay. I'm an only child. I'll be broken for a while, and I'll pay you back. Pay for you. And yeah, I know all too well. My mom passed away as well in 2020. In fact, May of 2020. It was during the pandemic, but it was not from the pandemic. She had developed lung cancer, which metastasized. It had spread to her brain and other organs. So the best I can say is that it was reasonably painless. Okay. Nonetheless, that pan's hotter than Georgia asphalt. Yes, exactly. As I said, that pan had been heated up to 450 degrees, and that's why we only need to bake it for only about 20 minutes, maybe even less. I'm probably checking in about 15 minutes. Yeah. Okay, I wasn't mama's boy. She was my best friend. Okay. Anyway, yes, that cornbread, as I said, has been in there for 15 minutes, and definitely, I'd say if nothing else, we can always dedicate this cornbread to Corey's mom, so, who I've no doubt probably made cornbread. Because whose mom doesn't make cornbread? Oh yeah, I just scooped up a tiny bit of that batter. It's definitely savory, and there's definitely no sugar in it. I'll say that much. However, having said that, okay, as I pointed out already, that was the Birmingham Stove and Range cornbread skillet. And here, in fact, is its baby brother, the 6 wedge cornbread skillet, 6CBS, which is 6 wedge cornbread skillet, which still has a patent pending mark on it. The cornbread skillet from BS&R is legendary, and pretty much I've said it enough times on this channel that everybody knows it probably. BS&R introduced the cornbread skillet as an experiment in 1967, and the thing just plain took off. It became a phenomenal bestseller, and reportedly, BS&R had the most profitable 2 years in its company's history in 1967 and 1968 because of the success of the cornbread skillet. And that cornbread skillet, of course, was so popular that it inspired other companies to make their own cornbread skillets. All of which are that is all well known. And in fact, the Lodge wedge pan is well known and still a regular seller even today. Course, it's also true that it's pretty easy to find the 8 wedge BS&R cornbread skillet, um, and at some time or another in your travels. So, especially because it's so common, I would honestly say that if you do find a BS&R cornbread skillet in the field, even today, 30 years after the company went bankrupt, um, I would still not want to pay a lot for that skillet unless you feel you have a real need for it. I would probably give a list price of maybe $20 as a maximum to pay for a typical BS&R cornbread skillet in the wild. In my case, I paid $30 for that skillet because the one that I bought happened to have the original label attached. And especially I got that for sentimental reasons because I felt that there was a good possibility it was made in the year that I was born, namely 1967. So that cornbread skillet has indeed had some special meaning to me. However, it still had the label attached and it was not, it had never been used. So for a while, I was in a quandary because, yeah, I actually wanted to use that pan. And then, just like that, the label simply fell out of the pan. And no, I did not take it out. It did not fall out with my help. It just literally, one day when I was moving it around, the label just plain came out. Great. So what did I do? I put the label in a picture frame, and I still have it hanging on my wall. In fact, whereas I was able to season the cornbread skillet, and I have gotten a fair amount of use out of it too. So, are you going to use your Eddie Bauer handled fish pan tonight? Yeah. I had, I hadn't considered it until you mentioned it. Let me go and dig that out right now. Do I have it hanging here? No, I believe I have it over here. Here it is. It's over in the corner. But that might not be a bad plan if you'd like. I can always heat up this pan and instead remove the pan that I was going to be using for making cornbread. But here it is, the Eddie Bauer fish pan. That might not be a bad idea. It'll give me a chance to re-season this pan. However, to do that, I've got another very hot cast iron pan in the oven that I had better take out right now. So let's move this little baby skillet out of the way and get out another legendary cast iron pan, which I guess might not be used tonight after all. Ah, and that is the Handy Dan cornstick pan. However, while we're doing that, let's take this one and heat it up in the oven right now. There we go. Because, yeah, something it's odd, and I know this really was not intentional. It seemed like BS&R in particular really had a history of cornstick pans because they were the inventors of the cornbread skillet. Yes. And then this was another piece of history because, well, their company was unfortunately getting into dire financial straits by the 1980s. They were in serious trouble, and they did try producing a few new pans to try to increase revenue and hopefully save the company. And unfortunately, that didn't work. They ended up going bankrupt. But among their experiments in the mid to late 1980s came this pan, the Handy Dan cornbread pan, the corn stick pan, I should say, not cornbread, corn stick pan. And all they really did was they simply welded two corn stick pans together and put a handle on it. And from all reports, and I'll verify those reports until I've been able to use it myself, this was a good idea because it turned out that it is really convenient. Yeah, this thing is hot to be able to pick up a corn stick pan like this. And so you can bake 8 corn sticks at once instead of 7. But more importantly, as I said, it's a really neat idea here. It did not become a huge bestseller, unfortunately, but nonetheless, it's, largely because of its rarity, but also I think because of the legend that sprung up around it. The Handy Dan cornstick pan has already become a collector's item. And when I say already, it's because, again, 30 years in the cast iron community is not as well, 35 years is not as old as some pans like 100-year-old Griswold pans and so on. However, speculators and antique vendors, of course, will use any excuse to sell things, and because of that, they've already dubbed the Handy Dan cornstick pan a rare collector. Hello, Louis J. Awesome cornbread pan. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. One day the stars will align and I will get a Handy Dan. Yes, exactly. Oh, at some point he just stopped. Okay. Um, But yeah, that is the very brief history of the handy Dan cornstick pan. It was produced for only a few years, and then BSNR went out of business, and so all of these have since again enjoyed, have become legendary in the field. Uh, every one of these ones is the same. They were all cast from the same mold. Here's a made in USA mark, and here is the mold number 74H. I have not seen any imitations of the handy Dan cornstick pan except for the Eddie Bauer fish pan. And you know that fish pan actually is developing something of a legend in itself because nobody seems to know whether it was made by BSNR or by Lodge. Lodge has claimed credit for it. They have claimed that they actually have the pattern for the Eddie Bauer fish pan in their vaults. I've seen representatives of Lodge Cast Iron state that. On the other hand, there are those who say that it was indeed produced by BSNR. I saw at least one post from a former BSNR employee on the BSNR collectors group stating that he could definitely say that they produced the Eddie Bauer pan because he had one himself. So who knows? Nonetheless, either way, though, yeah. Now that we've seen that, as much as I enjoy the handy Dan pan, I guess we will be doing as I said, we will be doing the corn. We'll be doing the fish pan tonight instead, and that should be interesting because we'll get to see whether or not it sticks. Ooh, and that cornbread is rising nicely too, even though there's only it only has yeah, it only has a teaspoon of baking powder in it. Lodge was a bully. Is I'm not so sure. Quite frankly, Lodge is a world class company in that they have excellent customer service. And yes, it's true, of course, in the marketplace, you do have to be tough and you have to take advantage of anything you can. So, yeah, I have no doubt that Lodge was pretty aggressive in its moves, especially when it acquired several of the BSNR patents and designs when BSNR went out of business, most famously the Sportsman Grill. Um, but on the other hand, reportedly, the president of BSNR in its last days, Saunders Jones Jr., and the president of Lodge Cast Iron, and I don't know who that was back in those days in the 80s, reportedly, they actually knew each other pretty well. So, I mean, while they had a business rivalry, apparently they didn't take it personally, which is actually a nice thing to say, especially when you consider it to the environments today. Jim F. I use my BSR cornbread pan to make brownies. Makes great crispy sides on the brownies. Oh, definitely. Good way to ensure that this is not a unitasker. They want to claim credit for BSR stuff. It's hard to say. Um, Nonetheless, I mean, you would think that after the BSR went out of business and Lodge obtained the designs for a number of BSR pans, you would think that Lodge would have started producing the official cornbread skillet, but they never did. They just continued producing their own wedge pan, which they do today. And they've even redesigned the wedge pan so that instead of one handle, it has two helper handles. I'd love to have one of those cactus pans. Oh yeah, his last name was Lodge. Yeah, the Lodge family owned and operated the company for decades. Um, anyway, okay, yeah, he was nice today because, however, a little evil that voids it out. Sounds like one of our friends. Okay, I'm not even gonna go there about bipolar. It's a beauty, rummage sale find. Oh, nice. I'm glad to hear you got a good score there, Rick. Um, Nonetheless, the cornbread, meanwhile, is looking pretty good in the pan. It looks like I'm gonna have some nice golden cornbread this time. Sometimes it's a little more brown than others, but definitely looks like it's going to be nice and golden this time. And from the looks of it, then I would say I could probably keep it in for another 6 minutes yet, because then that will make 20 minutes. Hey, folks, and hello, 4M Morris family. Corey Clark, I found a pig head pan. They wanted $300. I walked away with my tail between my legs. No, you didn't. You walked away sensibly. Nothing bad about turning away a pan for $300 that you could likely one of these days find at a much lower cost. In fact, I paid, what did I pay? $30, I think, on eBay for my pig head mold. In my case, if I remember right, the pig head mold was covered in paint though, and I had to strip the paint completely. So that's probably why I got a good deal on it. But you never know. Just keep on looking, and you may eventually find one at an affordable price. My daughter's in college, just got a part-time job at Cracker Barrel. Now, Dad gets 35% off Cracker Barrel cast iron products, even on the website. Well, congratulations on that, Honey Badger. And yeah, I'm sure we've seen the new um, cast iron American Heritage cast iron skillet from Cracker Barrel this year is in fact a remake of the Lodge Made in America skillet, the one that has the American flag on the bottom and the Made in America logo. It's a nice pan, and if you don't have one, I'm sure you'd be quite tempted to get a pan like that. And I can't say I don't blame you at all. Um, Although this does make the second year in a row that we have not yet seen an original design for a cast iron pan from Cracker Barrel. Well, there's always next year. I use the wedge pan, not the cornstick pan, for that reason. And let me know if you're to check into that. I should probably start preparing the next batch of cornbread at this point, even while we're waiting, especially since it's already been 16 minutes and we only have about 4 minutes to go. So the next batch, anyway, is the one that's going to upset everybody, and that would be cornbread with sugar, which in fact is what I grew up with, and I, for one, have I very much enjoyed both of them. I enjoy savory cornbread, and I enjoy sweet cornbread, but I definitely grew up with the sweet cornbread. That's for sure. And and once again, this is a recipe that I cobbled together, but I find it, quite satisfying, especially when it's baked in cast iron. One difference is to give it a different consistency. I like to use 1 cup of cornmeal and 1 cup of masa harina corn flour, because there are a lot of cornbread recipes there that do say to put in a cup of flour, and at the same time, they also a lot of people consider that sacrilege. When they say you should just use full cornmeal the whole way. So I found a compromise by using corn flour, namely masa, with my when I make my sweet cornbread, and it gives it a nice consistency too. So I've just put in 1 cup of masa harina, and to that we've got 1 cup of cornmeal, because you have to have cornmeal, otherwise it wouldn't be cornbread, would it? All right, so there's 1 and 1. Okay, and what are we seeing here? Let me check with the hot. Yeah, I grew up with sweet cornbread, but Jiffy is way too sweet. Yeah, I guess you're talking about this stuff. I considered making some of this Jiffy mix tonight, but I decided we'll go homemade all the way. Oh dear. Yeah, now I definitely should not have mixed that batter with the whisk, because now the whisk is wet, so I can't whisk the dry ingredients. Have to get up the bigger whisk. I'm actually find that I'm not entirely happy with this particular design of the whisk. I think I might end up getting another one of these days. Okay. Anyway, for the dry ingredients here, well, it's still pretty simple. Here we use a tablespoon of baking powder instead of a teaspoon. Let's dig out that baking powder once again. And then after that, I might have to check the cornbread. So we are using a tablespoon. Okay, or I guess we could say 3 teaspoons. So, not too much. One, two, and three. Definitely gives it more of a cake-like consistency too. Okay, and then with that, we will also be adding. Here's the part that will get everybody up in arms: the sugar. In my recipe, I use half a cup of sugar. And where is the sugar? There's that. Did I not take out the sugar? Okay. No, I didn't. I forgot to take out the sugar. Well, fortunately, that's easy enough. I'm taking out the sugar now. And then after that, I think I will check the cornbread. Okay, so that means I need to measure out half a cup of sugar and half a cup. Here we are. Oh, yeah. Yet another thing. I know I keep giving silly advice here to folks, but I can only say this: metal measuring cups. Plastic dollar store measuring cups do not last. I mean, after only a few months of use, the lettering wears off of those, and then of course you just have to keep shuffling through them until you find the right one. So I definitely say metal measuring cups. However, before I say any more, let's take a look again. And oh yeah, no, it's definitely getting browned, I think. So this thing, okay. The handy Dan pan is still hot, so I still need to lift that with gloves. But let's see what we have so far. And lo and behold, cornbread. Your basic Southern style cornbread here we've got. Um, Let me see. I realized I forgot to get a plate to take that out. So let's do that right now. Okay. Actually, here we go. Yeah, here's a plate. The other nice thing about this cornbread recipe, and I would think any cornbread recipe, is that you don't have to let it settle for very long. I mean, with a cake, yes, you do need to let it rest in the pan for, well, at least 20 minutes, as I found out. But with cornbread, you can really serve this almost immediately, probably because it has a different consistency. So, hmm, okay, I'll check. I'm a vintage kitchen gadget lover. I mark my plastic measuring cups with a Sharpie. Okay, brown sugar in my recipe. And I don't, yeah, brown sugar would work as well. However, this is still hot enough that I need to use this glove to hold the pan as we simply run our knife around the edges. And I have no doubt at all that this cornbread is going to fall out of the pan. And look at that. I could really, as you can see, there's not going to be any difficulty at all here. Why? Because we preheated it. So yes, it's true that there are folks who say that their cornbread sticks in the pan. But as you can see, the trick is quite simple. Preheat your pan. Add the oil to the pan and then get the oil good and hot. And the result is what we are about to see right now. The one, a two, a three. There we go. Bam. Just like that. All right. Yeah, that was not difficult at all, even for a novice like me. Here we go. As you can see, it's got a nice brown bottom to it. And yeah, I am doing something silly by actually trying to turn it over with my hands. Ooh, hot, hot, hot. This is very hot. But there we go. There's our first batch of cornbread. Okay. in a jiffy. Well, actually, not in a jiffy. We did not use jiffy. We did this from scratch tonight. And this is the type of cornbread that you definitely need to dip into something, such as chili, for instance, because as I said, it's a very savory cornbread. And yeah, we're off to a decent start tonight. But now, because I need room here, I need to put this aside. So I will just put it over here by the stove because it's time now to work on the next batch of cornbread. Okay, let me put this down here. Actually, I'll put it on the stove along with the handy Dan pan so that there will be room. All right, we are, what does it say here? Put another plate over it to flip it back. Well, that's one way to do it. I could have done that. I just didn't think of it right now because I'm a klutz. Okay, I'll take a piece with butter and honey. Yeah. Oh, I see. You just put honey on it now on its own, and that's not a bad plan either. Let us go back now to our what we were doing so far for the. Okay, let me see. The last thing I added was sugar. Just making sure here if this recipe has anything else for the dry ingredients. And it does. It has a teaspoon of kosher salt. So we can't forget the salt either. It adds that little touch to it to make sure it kind of like makes it not bland. That's really the whole point of adding salt to something sweet like this. So here is a teaspoon of kosher salt. And with that, we will do our dry ingredients. However, from here, where did I just put that whisk? Here it is. Whisk it all together, which again, we've got sugar. We also have a combination of cornmeal and masa corn flour. So this is definitely going to be an interesting flavor to this cornbread. And I've made this many times here. So I'm fairly confident, I'm fairly confident anyway, that it's going to turn out good. However, at this point, I'm going to hold tight because at the same time, actually, what I should also do now is turn the oven temperature down to 425. My bad. There we go. I don't want it too hot. And in fact, I'm going to open the oven for just a minute or so to let out some of the excess heat. All right, but anyway, we've got, as I said, this batch. But now that we've done that, I'm going to move this to the side for the moment, get out another bowl, and we will start preparing our third batch of cornbread. This is the spatula from the other batch, which I guess I better rinse off at the moment. And then, well, no, I don't have to dry it off because it's going to be a wet batter anyway. However, as I said, we're going to work on our third batch of cornbread tonight. And the third batch of cornbread is going to be interesting as well. I think I hinted this, but if not, here is some blue cornmeal that I ordered especially so that we could prepare it tonight. Yes, indeed. We're going to be doing blue cornbread as well as sweet cornbread. However, this blue cornbread is also going to have sugar in it. I looked up blue cornmeal on Wikipedia, and of course, it was interesting. Naturally, just about any food history is interesting, I find. So that means we get to. I also looked up a recipe specifically for blue cornbread, which is slightly different, but not really that much. Here we go. That means, let me see, ham hocks, beans, and mess of collard greens. Oh, yeah, blue corn tortilla chips. That sounds like a recipe for diabetes. Yeah, in a way it is if you have it all the time. But like everything else in moderation, as Cookie Monster says, this be sometime food. But there we go. Now we get to take a look at our blue cornmeal, which really looks kind of purple, doesn't it? Much like the other one, this calls for, actually, I think I'm going to have to use the half cup so that I don't spill it. But this calls for 1 cup of cornmeal and 1 cup of flour, just like the other one. This is a recipe. I think I hope I credited the recipe. Okay, but there we go. That's half a cup. And here's 1 cup. Yeah, because after this, I think I'll do a separate video, especially for this blue cornbread, because I'm sure folks will want to see that. Anyway, there is 1 cup of purple looking blue cornmeal. Now, let me seal this up. And interestingly enough, the instructions here specifically say, please refrigerate or freeze after purchase. So based on that, I'm going to put this back in the fridge right now. There we go. Okay, so we've got 1 cup of the blue cornmeal, and then from here, it also calls for 1 cup of flour, which means once again, we get to do the masa harina corn flour. All right, let's dig this out as best as we can. There's the corn flour. All right, so that's 2. Okay, what do we have so far? The recipe here says, okay, now from here, it uses a little more sugar than my recipe does. So this is also going to be a sweet cornbread. This one calls for 2/3 of a cup of sugar. And let me move this aside. This is my fault for trying to do all of this on camera where we only have a limited amount of space. Somewhere in here, I have the 1/3 cup. Here it is. Careful, I don't want to spill this all over the place. 2/3 of a cup of sugar. So here's 1/3 of a cup. Yeah, that is a third. And here is 2/3 of a cup. Oh yeah, part of the reason why is this one does not use honey, whereas my sweet recipe does use honey. Instead, this one also says a teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of baking powder, and that's all of the dry ingredients for this blue cornbread mix. So that is again a teaspoon of salt. Let me dig out the kosher salt once again. Kosher salt. And tablespoon or 3 teaspoons of baking powder. So one more time. Got 1, come on, 2, and 3. And with that, we get to whisk these dry ingredients together so that we can prepare both of these at pretty much the same time. As I said, I did actually look up the history of blue cornmeal. It's a particular kind of maize that comes especially from the southwestern United States and Mexico area. This is blue. This blue cornmeal, in fact, is kind of sacred to the Pueblo and the Hopi Indians from who that were the original inhabitants of those areas. So yeah, I will do my best to be respectful as I prepare this interesting purple-looking cornbread dish. And fortunately, as we can see, the masa did not significantly remove the blue color from this. So it is still going to be an interesting looking blue cornbread. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to do a video of specifically. There goes a little bit of it of this. Anyway, there are 2 bits of dry ingredients. Okay, we've got the standard and we've got the blue. If you use a different pan, you wouldn't have to have a heavy dose of heart clogging grease. Well, that's pretty much a standard here for making cornbread in cast iron. Um, Nonetheless, butter is kind of sacred too. Yes, exactly. That's why now that we get to the wet ingredients, let me switch back to my sweet cornbread recipe, which states now that we're going to use, okay, here we go. Back to here. And that is now we're going to have to put in about another cup of Where did that spatula go? There it is. Another cup of milk. And as I said before, here's the buttermilk. We have to add this a little bit at a time. As I've learned, and I can definitely say I learned this the hard way, may not have enough buttermilk left for the blue cornbread. I may have to make up for it with regular milk. Well, if so, then that's how it goes. On the other hand, I may have to add regular milk to this too, as well, just to get it to the right consistency. So based on that, I think I will try to make it down to 1 cup of buttermilk. And now we have about 1 cup of buttermilk left. So that means after this, I will start adding regular milk to it. So far, we're at the point where it looks like at least we've managed. Oh, great, there it goes again. Yeah, I always make a mess. That's pretty much a given, as anybody who's watched my live videos knows. So anyway, it looks like we've managed to moisten the whole mixture. So let's break out the milk. A little bit more milk anyway, because we're not done with these wet ingredients yet. So there's a little bit more milk. And then from there, I think we might just add the rest of the the rest of the wet ingredients and then start adding more milk until we get it to the right consistency. Right now, as it stands, it's reached the consistency of clay. So I think we definitely will need to add, oops, in fact, there's still a little bit of dryness to it too. So I think I will add a little bit more milk yet. Just got to be patient, a little bit at a time. There's a little bit more. And as you can see, I'm kind of eyeballing it. I would say I'm probably doing a little less than 1/4 cup at a time here. Oh, that's good. It looks like we are starting to get to the consistency that we want. So one more time. Oh yeah, we're definitely getting closer. See how the consistency changes very quickly after adding only a little bit more milk. That again is another reason why, as I've learned, you just want to add a little milk at a time. You don't want to dump it all in. Once this thing gets nice and wet, I think this might be all we need at this point before we can continue. Yeah, as you can see, this moistened it up very fast. So I think we will continue from here and then add the rest of the milk to give it the right consistency. Because what we have next for our wet ingredients is, okay, the egg once again. We've got to do 1 egg. Try to crack this egg a little better if possible. Move this out of the way. Oh yeah, this one cracked much better. There we go. That's your typical egg crack. I'm still a long way from doing the one-handed egg crack. As you can see, I'm still practicing the two-handed egg crack. Nonetheless, there's that. And then from here, 1 stick of melted butter. That's one advantage to this sweet cornbread. Fortunately, I melted the butter sometime in advance in this number 3 size BSNR skillet. Let's get this out. Throw the rest of this in. Again, this is a Red Mountain skillet because a cast iron skillet is the world's best butter melter. Anyway, that 1 stick of butter is definitely giving this thing a good consistency. That's for sure. I may not even need to add more milk. How about that? Because look at this. This is actually looking pretty good now. There we go. Once we get it all mixed in, we might even be all set, except for one thing. We have one other ingredient to add to this sweet cornbread, and that is honey. So to this, we throw in about 3 tablespoons of honey. course, it's not doesn't have to be an exact measurement. Come on. Yeah. No comments, folks. There we go. Okay, and there's the honey. Yeah, this is a nice consistency. I'm not sure if we need any more milk because this is looking pretty good. Yeah, I don't know, maybe a tad bit more milk, but not much more. All right, but this is looking pretty good here. And then after this, we'll move on to the blue cornbread. All right, let's see what it says here. I rarely use the skillet I'm making the cornbread in to melt the butter. Oh, I usually use it. That way it greases the pan at the same time. That's a good excuse itself. Yeah, excuse yourself, right? I'm going to try the half a cake that uses buttermilk, and I refuse to try it again because I hate to buy the buttermilk. Well, I rarely buy buttermilk as well. I use curdled milk, which is basically 1 tablespoon of vinegar for every 1 cup of water. And I just realized once again I forgot to heat up the oil in the pan. Well, fortunately, there's still time for that because we still have another batch of all this to prepare. So in that case, let's just add maybe a dash more milk, and I think this batch of cornbread batter will be ready. Yeah, actually, as you can see, this is thickening pretty quickly. So yeah, I think this extra dash of milk is definitely what we need. Looking good so far, I think. All right. Maybe a little bit more yet. I don't think this is quite right. So I spoke too soon. There's a little here comes a little bit more milk. There we go. This should almost certainly be enough though. Hope I didn't overdo it just now. Mixes in nicely though, at least I could say that much. Oh yeah, I think this is gonna be enough. This is good. This is much more like it. All right, there we go. Especially since we're going to have to set this aside for a few minutes, which means it may settle more yet as we prepare the blue cornbread mix. Now, that one doesn't use honey. Okay, which means there we go. Here is our sweet cornbread mix. However, before we do that, as I said, we still have to heat up the oil in the other cast iron pans, especially the fish pan, because that is what we're going to use for making the sweet cornbread. So let us dig out once again, since it's been heating up nicely at this point. Here it is. Ooh, careful. Here again is the Eddie Bauer fish pan. So now that we've done that, let's put some of this heart clogging grease in it. Yeah, I'm sorry, but this is, I mean, as you know, this is done especially to make it work. It's a necessary step. That's why, oops, I overdid it. In fact, there we go. I'll just have to spread it out. That's why we add oil to the pan. It is, it's not an optional step, I'm afraid. Okay, let's spread this out as best as we can. I definitely overdid it with the oil, in fact. Nonetheless, this besides, this is going to go back in the oven to heat up as well. But yeah, I would like to see how well this works as well. It's been quite a while since I've used this pan, so thank you very much for the suggestion. All right, there we go. I think we have it, which means back into the oven for this one. This is going into the oven to heat up carefully. And finally, we take the last pan out of the oven. And that is another one that many of us have seen. Lucky number 7. Ah, yes, this again is my cornbread skillet. Well, I've made other things in it, but I love making cornbread in good old lucky number seven here, which is, of course, a gate marked pan from maybe the late 1800s to perhaps the early 1900s. It's one of those generic gate marked pans that came as part of a set of cookware that you would get when you got a wood burning stove. Anyway, all we have to do is swish the oil around. I should probably even brush the sides. There we go. Lucky number seven here is my UFO, my unidentified flying object, because even though we know it dates to around that time, we do not know who the manufacturer was, and we will probably never know. And with that, good old Lucky also goes back into the oven to heat up. Come on, there we go. As we prepare our last batch of sweet cornbread. Hmm. Second fish drowning. Yeah, tell me about it. Well, fortunately, we are going to be dumping that extra oil out into the cornbread batter. My cornbread pen is a number seven BSNR Century. Perfect. Oh, glad to hear that. All right. Hold on. There we go. That was caught on the cord. Here is that batch of cornbread batter. Now we will move this aside and bring back out one more time the blue cornbread batter, or at least so far it's the cornmeal plus masa harina plus sugar. Because now we get to start adding the wet ingredients, which means I switch back to that other recipe. Here it is. Okay, this one actually calls for 2/3 of a cup of vegetable oil. And so let me see. So where did I find that 1/3 cup? Here it is. 1/3 cup. But yes, that's exactly what it shows in the recipe. So I'm going to have to trust it. I mean, I suppose I could have melted more butter if I wanted to, but I'm trying to be authentic, especially since this is my very first time making blue cornbread. So here's 1 cup. Here's another cup. And we will put that aside. The vegetable oil I'm using here, in fact, is where did I just put that spatula? Here it is. Oh, great! Since I did that, I'm gonna have to use another spatula. Excuse me 1 second. Here we go. Anyway, what I was saying is the vegetable oil I'm using here specifically is my stir frying oil. It is a combination of 90% canola oil and 10% extra virgin olive oil. I am not worried about the taste. Okay. I do not think that's going to spoil it in any way because I have actually used this in food before. Anyway, if nothing else, at least this is definitely moistening the batter. So we're off to a decent start at least. And then from here, since this does not use honey, it does, however, use the last of those eggs. It uses 1 egg. So let's see if we can do this right once again. Not bad. Right, there we go. At least, despite the difficulty with the first one, we are 3 for 3 in putting our eggs in without shell. Thank goodness. So that might be a good sign. 1 egg will mix up. And then now finally we start adding, now we start adding the milk. Here's where it says 1 cup of milk, or in other words, more buttermilk. So again, we start adding a little bit at a time and then work our way around until we get to the right consistency. Which means, once again, patience more than anything else. All right, I've lost track of the time. I hope we're not running too late. Even so, once this cornbread is in the oven, it should not take long at all to do. Not even in good old Lucky. There we go. Here's a little bit more. And anyway, all of that sugar, I guess you could say the buttermilk as well. The sourness of the buttermilk is probably helping to counter that. So it's still going to be a good blue cornbread. At least I hope so. I have not used this recipe before. Then again, I've never used blue cornmeal before. That was why I wanted to try to make this according to the recipe. I'll try experimenting on my own probably the next time I make this, like maybe tomorrow, perhaps. Well, we will see how this turns out. Actually, it's mixing in nicely here. And so far, we are only getting close to 1 cup. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's, of course, that's also because we use that extra oil in it as well. So that would certainly explain why it's getting to be a good consistency so far. Anyway, here comes the last of the buttermilk, which means that if we need any more, it'll have to be regular milk. That's not a problem. Still, I'm hoping that this may be all we need here. Because once again, I think this is getting to the right consistency here. Nice. All right. So far, so good. Definitely is maintaining its blue color. I like that, which means it's going to have an interesting dark surface to it if the photos are accurate from that recipe. Not bad. I think maybe like before, I will throw in a dash more milk, and then I think we'll be all set. Ingredients: cornmeal, milk, cream, and 32 gallons of oil. Yeah, about that. Make it 33 gallons, like a baker's dozen. All right. And besides, this is what if you don't use oil in your cornbread batter, then of course you don't have to. Everybody makes it according to their own tastes. I'm not going to criticize others' tastes. After all, I'm the one who's going to be eating this. Well, actually, so are my guests. They are very much interested in seeing what the blue cornbread is like, as am I for that matter. But this is at a nice consistency now. So that means now that we've done that, we have one, we have the other. And that means it's time now for the cast iron. So I think I'll start with Lucky. Because I'm using a single pan, it'll probably take just a little longer to cook the blue cornbread than it will to cook the fish pan. However, whether or not that's the case, better break out my glove once again. And where did he go? Here it is. Here comes Lucky. Lucky number 7. With only a little bit, mind you, of the extra oil in it. So how to do this? Let's do it this way. Carefully hold this in. Here it comes. There it goes. And with that, mix that extra bit of artery clogging oil in there. I'm not hiding it. In we go. And there comes the sizzle. I'm not sure my mic can pick up that sizzle, but this is definitely sizzling. Try to get as much of this in here as possible. Here we go. And that looks like about it. Spread it out. And into the oven goes our blue cornbread. Let's do it quickly, shall we? One, 2, 3. All right, that's that. Now for the last one. And considering I think we're past, yeah, we're already at 20 past 10 past 9 here. So here comes the last one. And the last one is the one you suggested. And I'm more than happy to acquiesce to your request. Here is the Eddie Bauer fish pan. It's called Eddie Bauer because that was the store it was sold at, which, I mean, those Eddie Bauer stores are long since out of business, but the cast iron pan is still there. There we go. Comes the rest of that. Oh, this is hot. Yeah, this thing definitely heated up, that's for sure. All right, now for the rest of this. And here's where I've got to be careful. Let me see. Here's that serving spoon. Good. All right. Let's get this out of the way. Pull up the serving spoon. Start scooping. But you know, there's not a lot of room in this fish pan. I'll say that much. I mean, look at this. I've already gotten as far as there. I think I may very well have to pull out another pan to finish the rest of this cornbread recipe here. Because look at this. This is going very quickly, and I've only used a couple of scoops so far. As you can see, I'm trying to do it so that it's pretty much even with the top here. Boy, am I doing a terrible job. All right, try to straighten this out as best as we can here. Throw this in. Boy, this is terrible, isn't it? I'll be the first to say that. Well, manage as best as we can. There we go. There, and there. All right. Well, we will see what happens. But now we actually have a fair amount of this batter left. So let's get back here one more time. And dig out the fish pan, which is why, fortunately, I actually have another pan in here. Oh, good thing we prepared for it, because guess what? Here we have one more cornbread pan here, and this is yet another one that we haven't talked about yet, the famous corn stick pan. However, especially since while I did heat it in advance, I'm going to have to kind of eyeball it, so to speak, with the with the corn oil. There we go. Whoops, there we go. That's definitely more than enough now. Overdid it once again. However, yeah, this is the last one, the corn stick pan, the one that they really don't talk much about, which is interesting because this is probably one of the oldest pans made especially for cornbread. Not necessarily this one, although this is still a BSNR Red Mountain corn stick pan, so it definitely has some age to it. But I mean, these corn stick pans have been around really since, well, no, they did indeed have those Turk's head pans back in the early days. So there were specialty baking pans even then. But the cornstick pan, of course, has survived to the present day, whereas those other baking pans, shaped pans, generally did not. And of course, these cornstick pans are so popular that you can find them everywhere, and I mean everywhere. All right, let's do this again. I mean, you cannot go to an antique store just about anywhere in the country without seeing at least one of these cornstick pans. Many flea markets have them. For that reason, they almost never go at a high price. Not unless they have the Griswold name on them, of course, because then, of course, naturally, the vendors will still jack up the price no matter what, because Griswold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's spread this out a little bit. I seem to be having the same problem that I had with the fish pan. So at least I could say it's not the fault of the pan. That just means it's my fault. And the last bit. And we'll spread this out a little bit more. There we go, more or less. All right. And that uses just about all of the sweet cornbread batter too. So we are doing pretty good. That means, and here's why the handy dandy cornstick pan was so, I think was such a great idea. Because getting this one into the oven without spilling it can be a little tricky. Two gloves, and let's carefully get this in best as we can. Come on. Come on, don't. There we go. Yay, we made it. All right. Whew, we did it. Oh, probably done now. No, I think I can definitely say it's not yet done. Although I do have to say, the fish pan, the one in the fish pan, is definitely expanding. The blue cornbread definitely has ways to go, though. So I think we've got to just be patient there. You could just pipe the batter into the pans. You probably could. Thinner batter would work better for those mold pans. So far, I like to think even I've been making my cornbread at that consistency, and I've usually had pretty good luck. I think the only cornstick pan that I've had sticking problems with is, in fact, the fish pan. But we'll see what happens. Saw it and wanted it. Thanks to you and Rick G. I won't enjoy it spinning spinning everywhere laughing. Okay. Cast iron man, it's gotta have cornbread for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah, tell me about it. Well, fortunately, I do have friends and their family that I can also serve some of this cornbread to. Find a video about making butter. You can beat cream and then have to rise it. And yeah, that's certainly true. I think once I've made butter myself, but only once. I have an aluminum fish pan. I would think even though your fish pan is aluminum, I would still suggest that you try preheating the pan. Otherwise, you may have to do the grease and flour thing in order to be sure that that it's properly prepared so that it's non-stick. All right. While we're waiting, I guess we will break out these two pans once again: the cornbread festival pan and the BSNR 6 wedge cornbread skillet, which I haven't mentioned that much about. As I mentioned, the 8 wedge cornbread skillet, as I said, was a fantastic bestseller, and it's actually made history. So BSNR also released the baby version of the namely the 6 wedge cornbread skillet, and that did not sell very well, as it turned out. Production of the pan was discontinued at some point, and when it was actually discontinued, it's hard to say because I recently saw and was shown a 1980s, I think it was even 1987, Birmingham Stove and Range Century Cookware catalog, and it still showed the 6 wedge cornbread pan still available in the catalog. Does that mean they were making this pan all the way through to the 1980s? Maybe, but maybe not. Because consider the alternative. This pan was not a bestseller. It could very well be that, especially because the 8 wedge cornbread skillet was such a huge seller, they may have produced a huge amount of the 6 wedge cornbread skillet. And because it was not a bestseller, they may very well have had this in their inventory for years, perhaps, after they stopped production. Who knows? I don't think there's anybody who can definitely say when they stopped producing these 6 wedge cornbread skillets, and I consider it a possible theory that they may have stopped producing the 6 wedge pan years before, and just kept on selling it because they still had it in their inventory. So that's one possibility. I'm gonna check. I just might try to make some homemade butter. Oh, that sounds good too. I love to reheat Reheat day-old cornbread in cast iron with butter, extra crispy. Yeah, that's definitely good. What kind of trivet? This trivet. I've mentioned this before. This trivet actually I've had for about 4 years, and this is a John Wright trivet, as I found out. This particular one is unmarked on the bottom, but then I saw this exact design of trivet, same color and everything, at the Brimfield Antique Show, and that one had a John Wright mark on it. So I can safely say that this particular trivet is a John Wright, and that's what I'm happy about there. William, I heard it was literally the best. I'm going to check it out. When fresh is best, and I'm sorry, I forgot the word trivet. Yeah, exactly, but that's what it is there. Maybe okay, Rick Stumbow. What? Okay, maybe CSE can tell us. What am I missing there? Could you repeat what you were saying? I've kind of missed your conversation there, Rick. I'm afraid I've kind of missed that. Find a rancher and get some raw milk to make your butter, depending on where you live, of course. Um, yeah, okay, I'm not going to get into this argument, but I am not a big fan of raw milk. I am, in fact, a fan of pasteurization because, yes, I do believe there is the potential that raw milk could very well be dangerous. So I myself am not a fan of raw milk, but that's as far as I'm going to get because I don't want to get into an argument over it. My aunt and uncle had a dairy farm, fresh raw milk all day long. Well, on the other hand, you might also argue that, of course, they were able to have it, fresh from the cow. So they certainly couldn't, so there really wasn't much time for it to pick up any infections, as well as if the cows were well raised, as opposed to, say, dairy conditions. Nonetheless, cornbread and milk for breakfast is awesome with some sugar. Yeah, I certainly like that. Yeah, definitely better than a cereal. I've done that too. Just simply mix milk and sugar into it, and you've got yourself pretty much a corn mush cereal for breakfast. And yeah, I'm very much a favor of that as well. I drank it raw when I was on my aunt's farm. Okay. Ever put hot peppers in your cornbread? I am not a big fan of hot peppers, I'm afraid. So, hold on. I'm still getting, you done with the live? I'm getting somebody. Yeah, I've got to run out pretty much as soon as this is done. Still still on the live right now. Full stop. Okay. Yeah, because usually this would be the time that we would break for the evening. However, again, we have some cornbread to finish here. And some of it I'm starting to smell, and I'm not sure, but we might very well be done with the fish pan. Let me move these out of the way and let's see what you folks think. Let me bring this out. Let me bring out the fish pan right now. Because this is looking pretty good, if you ask me. I mean, look at all the browning all along the edges here. There's a little bit of browning on top, so I think that I'd say that this one here may very well be done. So we're off to a decent start here. As soon as the pan's out, he can go and play. Yeah, pretty much. And play would mean helping a friend to move, I'm afraid, kind of like an emergency move. But that's how it goes. Anyway, okay, so yeah, I do believe that this might be enough here for the fish pan. In that case, it's time to break out another plate and see whether or not we can get this out of the pan without sticking. That's always the real question, isn't it? Let's put this over here. All right. Smells great. Yeah, actually, it does. Fish-shaped hush puppies. Pretty much. I guess that's what the appeal was. Although, as I said, it was definitely a uniquely shaped one. That's for sure. Let me just pull at the edges here a little bit so that we can be sure. I hope it doesn't stick. It's very hard to say. Move this. I'm thinking that I might be in trouble. Like it or not, I'm not so sure that this is going to be as non-stick. However, before I say that, I'd say we should probably just give it a try and see. Yeah, because I'm definitely seeing what might very well be some sticking, I'm sorry to say. But let's not be too pessimistic. Although I am a little bit worried, even though I prepared this, yeah, even though I prepared this in the same manner, this does not seem. You know what? Maybe I should actually put this back in for another few minutes. I think I might be just a little hasty. So, yeah, I think I would rather be safe than sorry. All right, which means we better hold tight for just a few minutes. Meanwhile, on the other hand, let's take a look at this, shall we? Check this out, folks. There we go. Some alien purple blue cornbread. This is not looking too badly at all. Well, I think with this one, we better do the old toothpick test and see what happens. All right, let's stick this in. Oh yeah, we are good here. Okay. Well, so far so good. We definitely have got ourselves some blue cornbread. I guess the question once again is whether or not we're going to get this out of the pan. I had better take a picture of this though, because yeah, I can definitely see the appeal of blue cornbread. This really looks like something from another planet, doesn't it? So let's do the camera. Actually, one more with wider shot of the pan. There we go. Better. All right. Showed with my thermometer today. Lots of cornbread. Yes, exactly. There is going to be a lot of cornbread tonight. However, we are at least, let's hope we can get this thing out without any difficulty. But I guess there's only one way to find out, isn't there, folks? So here we go again. A one, a two, three. Ha! We got it. Oh yeah. In fact, it looks like I might have very barely burned or scorched the bottom, but only a little bit. And it might be because of all the sugar that went into there. Okay, so now, like you said, let's get one more plate and flip it. All right, so that means, ta-da! Here is our blue cornbread. Oh yeah. Don't forget how you know if it's seasoned well enough. If you ain't sneezing, it ain't seasoned. Yeah, that's about right. Butter that bottom. Why do I want to spread sour cream and salsa on the blue cornbread? Well, the blue cornbread it does actually have some sugar in it, although it's not as sweet as the other one. That looks like bread. That looks like what the bread, what's your name, eats in the Force Awakens. Maybe that might very well be what they did. They may very well have made blue cornbread, perhaps. Still, yeah, I'm happy, regardless of what's happened so far. We've had two successful batches of cornbread. Here's one, and here's the other. So even if the last one sticks, we would still be 2 out of 3. So yeah, this is turning out to be a pretty successful night after all, which is good considering all the mess I've made here. All right. Having said that, I guess let's get down to the last one, the one where I may very well have messed up. Okay, because now that it's been in the oven once again, comes number 2 on the fish pan. There's that and that, and this and that. Okay, well, despite everything, I'm still kind of worried about this one sticking. I mean, I did heat it up and I did heat up the oil, but I'm still not so sure. Nonetheless, I guess all we can do is find out. Where did that last plate go? Here it is. Oh, let's do this carefully because this is very wide. See what happens. Ugh. And the answer is no. It did not. It stuck. Okay. Well, let's keep on going. Let's see what we can do here. If we peel this out carefully. Oh, yeah, no, this thing is sticking badly, unfortunately. Yep. No such luck. That's not successful. This one is. That one is so-so. So far. Well, we got one sort of. We try sticking it under this way. Ugh, damn. Oh, there's another, more or less. Well, it's not really sticking to the bottom here, even though it is all coming apart, regrettably. There's 4. Ow, 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 ow. Okay, well, this is definitely okay. As we say enough times, as long as it's edible, then it's still successful, right? Let's try number 5. I mean, that's the thing. It's sticking to the sides, but it's not really sticking much to the pan. Number 6 coming up. Maybe that's why they never continued the Eddie Bauer pan, perhaps. Maybe because of the shape it has tended to stick, perhaps. I'd say that might be a possibility. But nonetheless, what you were saying just now about cornbread cereal? Well, guess what? I think we have a candidate for it. There's number 7. And finally, number 8. Oh well. What can you do? I mean, it's not like oh yeah, the last one turned out to be the best, as a matter of fact. Let me do that again. Here's the last one. The last one actually worked, sort of. Now, as I said, what can you do? If nothing else, at least this still turned out okay. So much so that I'm gonna kind of numb a little piece right now. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. So despite all that, we still have some tasty sweet cornbread. So there we are, sort of. Yeah. All right. Finally, the last one. Cornbread dressing on the menu. Yes, exactly. I mean, after all, as I said, ooh, wow, look at this last one, though. Check this out. This was the good old cornstick pan. The one, as I said, that nobody seems to talk about. This one looks a lot better than the last one did. Not bad here. As I said, this is a red mountain, and you can tell because of the handles here. The red BSNR have this M-shaped handle here, or W, depending on which way you're looking at it. And from here, I think all I need to do is start cutting it carefully. Because look at this. This one, on the other hand, seems to be coming out much more successfully. Hot. Okay, there's 1. There's 2. Careful. 3. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, there's no sticking. I'll say that much. There's 3. Here comes 4. Bam! Look at that. That's just coming right out of there. Ow! Hot, 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 hot. 5. Cut it a little bit more here. Yeah, look at this. I mean, this one is pretty much what you might want to get with this cornstick pan. So yeah, the humble cornstick pan seems to do a much better job here than the more fancy Eddie Bauer fish pan. I'm not sure if that's going to change somebody's mind and he may decide he doesn't want a fish pan. Hard to say. I ended up acquiring this fish pan after a famous cast iron collector passed away and all of his stuff was auctioned off. I was asked for what from that collection would I put a bid on, and I suggested this fish pan, and I won. Oh, okay, so this one almost. Come on, there we go. And finally, the last one, which comes out just like that. There we go. Oh, hot, hot, hot. Holy cow, this is hot. All right. But there we go. We have a nice big plate here of sweet cornbread. And even though it all came apart, I mean, nobody's going to complain when they eat it. That's for sure. Here, in fact, if I were to take another piece right now and go, mm. So, no, I cannot say that this is a failure. I mean, despite the fact that I did so terrible getting these things out of the pan, here again is the fish pan. There was some sticking, but as you can see, nothing too considerable. It stuck to the sides, and that's what really pulled them apart. And on the other hand, here is the corn stick pan, which also looks pretty good. So let me turn off the oven because I think we're all set. That's not so bad because, like you said, we've got the makings here. Definitely of some cornbread mix, like cornbread cereal. I am liking that plan more and more. However, despite all that, we still have blue cornbread. This, I think, really might very well be the star of the night because I'm certainly looking forward to trying it. However, I'm going to let this set before I actually try cutting into it. And finally, the best one of all, the good old Southern cornbread. But there we go. And all of this is pretty much a preview of what we're going to be seeing at the National Cornbread Festival. So yeah, this again would be the whole reason why I why I decided to do all of this cornbread tonight, because yes, indeed, it's a week from tomorrow. I'm heading out on a road trip, and among other things, we'll be seeing the National Cornbread Festival. It's been 6 years since I've been there, and I am indeed looking forward to seeing it again. Okay, great. A couple of YouTube notices have completely covered up the the chat. So let me close these. And what do we have here? Cynthia, I checked with toothpicks. I got fooled once, never again. Cornbread stuffing, yummy cornbread. Yes, indeed. I'll be staying away from novelty pans. And I can't say I blame you, Leonard. Leonard the committed, that is. And yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I've had better luck getting the cornbread out of the pan with the handy Dan pan, in fact. And maybe we can try that next time. But for now, as you can see, if nothing else, though, I mean, just the good old whoa, don't want to drop that. Again, the good old cornbread pan, which, as I said, is lucky number 7, gave us a nice solid pan of blue cornbread. And likewise, the BSNR cornbread skillet gave us our golden savory cornbread, both of which I'm definitely looking forward to having some chow with. Okay, I don't think the fish pan bread was done either. Maybe I might have undercooked them. That's certainly possible. Well, I was trying to get all of this done in the space of the live tonight, so perhaps we might have been a little hasty. All right, I'm going to have to consider that next time, and maybe we will just simply cook them a little longer and see how it goes. Even though you have to say, look at this, the bottom of the corn sticks are very, very browned, so it's hard to say. They might have burned if they were kept in there much longer. But nonetheless, there we are. Here is our cornbread, cut into big blue. I want to see the crumb. Yeah, that's kind of tempting. I will say that. Okay, I did promise my friends a slice of it, but I think this is really what everybody wants to see here. However, just to be sure, I try to get as nice a piece as possible. I'm going to dig out a nice sharp knife for that. So let's dig out our santoku. And from here, we will just simply cut off, slice as carefully as we can. Take them. There we go. Of our blue cornbread. Yeah, you can see it's still collapsing already. I hope I wasn't too hasty, but nonetheless, do this. There we go. Look at that blue cornbread. What's the pink piece in the middle? I think that might be a piece of the actual masa harina. The original yellow cornbread flour. Nonetheless, kind of spooky, isn't it? Boy, it almost looks like there's an eye in there, quite frankly. However, there it is. Blue cornbread, folks. And now that I've done that, I guess we're going to have to see what it tastes like. So, well, I mean, after all, I know there's sugar in it. Break off some of this and test it out. Mm, mm. Can definitely taste the sugar. It is not as sweet as the honey cornbread, but mm-hmm. What can I say? It's cornbread. It's definitely a sweetness to it, but I think you might indeed want to put a lot of butter on it, just like you would on any other cornbread. Still, there we go. Okay, fish pan just needs to be used more. That is certainly possible. Yeah. I had to specially order that blue cornmeal online from a local supplier, but I'm not regretting it. And in fact, as I said, I'm going to use more of that and separately make a blue cornbread video because I think people will want to see it just because it's so unusual. But nonetheless, we are getting into our late hours here, and so we really do have to call this. Um, After all, it is still a Wednesday night, and we really have to get going. I have to go and help a person move, which means I'm going to be not have a lot of sleep tonight. Well, that's how it goes. What can you say? But nonetheless, we've got the weekend coming up. And as I said already, next week is going to be the National Cornbread Festival. And I'm definitely looking forward to another road trip. And who knows, might end up scoring more cast iron. And having said all that, I can only thank everybody. Yeah, it needed more oil. Looks purple now, Corey. Yes, indeed. I guess I'll give one last shot of that as we close out for the evening here because it is indeed time to call this one a night. I do know, though, that I definitely enjoyed this regardless because, on the whole, the results were quite successful, I think. And I love trying things I've never tried before, such as working with blue cornmeal, which I'm definitely going to be doing again. Nonetheless, though, I can only thank everybody here who's been kind enough really to watch us tonight here. Strong's Adventures. Are you going to compete in the cornbread cook-off? No, I am not. First of all, the entries for that are closed a couple of months ago. That is a national competition. That's not just something you can walk in and try to do, unfortunately. So I missed my opportunity quite some time ago. Even so, I'm just going to go there and have fun and see and eat a lot of cornbread. And Miss Moose, yeah, I tried to make corn dogs with dual Griswold corn pans and failed miserably the first time. Well, I do the best I can. That's all I can say. And besides, I'm looking forward to having some cornbread cereal. But having said that, thank you to everybody who's been kind enough really to watch here tonight. Val's Black Cat's Rules, 4M Morris Family, Rocket Caver, William Herb, Strong's Adventures, Rick Stumbow, all the folks that we see here every night. And thank you very much, Greg Hart. It makes it so much more fun for me when you folks are all here and commenting. So thank you once again to everybody. And have a good night to Patricia Parsons and to Miss Moose 1979 and to everybody. Yeah, exactly. It can certainly get more corny, but I would say this was a corny success. So thank you so much, Rick and Celine 77 and everybody. Thank you, everybody, because next week, as I said, it's going to be the night before I head out on my road trip. I may take it easy and we might just simply have a cast iron discussion, but who knows? We'll see what happens. All I know is then yeah, I really needed to get my mind off of things. Well, yes, I do understand, Corey Clark, and you have all of our condolences. I'm thinking of my mom, thanks to you. So, and that I'm considering that a good thing. And I hope, at least if nothing else, you'll be able to you'll be able to commemorate her, and well, we will all move on. And have a good evening, everybody, folks. And Cynthia Wesley, yes, say before again, exactly. Take care of yourself. Be blessed with less stress. And thank you as well to Cynthia and Rick and Corey and everybody. And once again, I can only wrap it up with those words that we always say. See you next Wednesday.